Taylor Tomlinson takes on family of origin and meeting the future in-laws.
Potential
in-laws. And we've got thoughts to share. Mended Light. Well, you and I are both big TT fans. She probably wouldn't like me calling her that. I'm going to recant and take that back. You introduced me to her comedy. She's one of your favorite comedians.
Yeah, well, and comedy is such a wonderful form of catharsis, right?
Yeah.
If you're feeling heavy emotions, if you need to laugh, if you need to cry, laughter alleviates pain. So it's definitely in my social media feed, like it shows up.
Yeah, it's like, this is what she likes, give her more of it. Yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing I like about it showing up on social media is it's a little bit cleaner, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not as big a fan of language and things like that, but I found this clip and I was like, you have to watch this. I showed it to you, I showed it to my best friends, I showed it to my in-laws, and we all just like died. And then we're like, we need to share this with the Mended Light community. So
here we are. We're going to talk about family of origin stuff, meeting the parents, and we have some insights to share. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Have you guys introduced people you were dating to your parents? It's not about introducing people you love to one another, is it? No, it's about showing your partner why you're mean to them sometimes.
Crazy look in her eyes.
It's about taking your sexual partner back to the scene of the crime. To say, see, the stories are true. Because you don't want your partner to like your parents. You want them to walk out of that night going, oh my God. Your parents are just, I know. I mean, seriously, babe, how did you ever? I don't know. Kind of seems like maybe people should cut me some slack when I'm being a bitch, though, huh? Kind of seems like maybe now that we have all the information, turns out I could be a lot crazier if I wanted. But I keep a lid on it pretty good, and I deserve to stop at Target on the way home. With no time limit. And I want a cart, not a basket.
The way she pivots and then stares down.
I keep a lid on it pretty good.
Yeah. Let's take a moment to appreciate the delivery and the timing of Taylor Tomlinson. So good. So you shared this with me, maybe not just because it was a funny piece of comedy. Why did this speak to you?
Yeah. Well, because there's definitely some relatability there of like, it could be so much worse, right? And definitely the friends and the family that I shared this clip with, there was some understanding on both sides of like, we could be so much worse. Like, I'm doing pretty good here. I'm not saying I got it all figured out, but I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah.
And while I'm not a Target shopper, because I just don't really like to go into stores ever, I avoid it at almost all costs. Clicking buttons online is so much faster.
So true.
Efficiency. It's all about efficiency. Yeah, but taking, and when you add comedy to something that is not funny sometimes, right? We all have families of origin where there's dynamics where it's just simply not funny sometimes, right?
Yeah.
So being able to add the humor into the not funny aspects of life, understanding someone else's family background gives you the ability to understand them and where they're coming from.
Yeah.
And like when you and I were dating, like we definitely discovered that our families were drastically different. Drastically different. And so there were certain things that your family would do that weren't right or wrong, but I'm just like, that is so weird. Why do they do that?
Yeah.
And then as I got to know them, I was like, oh, that's just your family dynamics.
That's really not how things work around here, Chris.
Families are like individuals, strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I feel like my family in a lot of ways is very verbally, openly affectionate and not especially critical or blunt with one another. But the flip side of that is sometimes we don't say things to each other that we should say to each other, and things get spoken in other directions.
Yeah.
And so there's definitely a culture of positivity, which can be a good thing, but can also, it's not always being genuine.
Right.
Right? There's a niceness thing. Your family
Yes.
is all about speaking your minds And sometimes it doesn't feel as positive or as nice, but like stuff gets spoken and then it gets resolved and then it gets dealt with.
So your first impressions of my family were like, oh, they're overly
I'm like, they're harsh. They're harsh
They're
people.
harsh.
Yeah.
And then it was like, oh no, there's a lot of love there. But if something needs to be said, it's going to be said and it's going to be addressed. And on the surface, it feels more harsh, but there's always the love there.
And in short-term bursts, stuff gets out, it may not be pretty, but then it gets dealt with and healed and people but then it doesn't fester, right?
Right.
So
and once again, those are different family dynamics. And
because my family is also in its own way very supportive and very loving, but it's just differences. Yeah.
Yeah. And so ultimately it's up to the individual to decide what works for you, what doesn't work for you.
Yeah.
And I came to the conclusion regarding that drastic difference in our family dynamics is I was going to let you handle your family the way you chose, and if it didn't directly involve me, I wasn't gonna get involved.
Not my circus, not my mice. Just But understanding family of origin helped you see why sometimes I would be avoidant or sometimes I would sugarcoat things.
Right.
And helped me see why sometimes what to me coming from my family is harsh or blunt, to you isn't harsh or blunt, and it's not being rude, it's just being direct.
Yeah.
Right?
It's like if I didn't care, I wouldn't be direct.
Right.
Yeah.
And so understanding where a person comes from, understanding their family of origin, their family background, helps you to understand why they are the way they are, and maybe cut them some slack. That's the truth of the comedy.
Yeah.
Something that she doesn't say, and maybe because it's not as funny of a conversation,
right.
is that at the same time, we can't use our families of origin as excuses for poor or hurtful behavior.
Oh, spare me your lame excuses.
Everyone has to be responsible for themselves. And so when she says, maybe you should cut me a little slack when I'm being a bitch, and it could be so much worse, right?
Yeah.
It's a really great joke. In a relationship, it's a balance, right? I don't hate you or hold a grudge for acting the way you acted. At the same time, I'm going to tell you it hurt me and I want things to change. Let's keep going.
You have to be careful when you introduce people to your parents, though, because your parents don't always show up as your parents, do they? Mine never did. My parents undermined me every single time I brought someone home to meet them. I did everything right. I did the huddle up in the car before we went in, hey, remember what I told you? Those people in there, they're not your friends. Whatever they say to you, do not take that personally. It's not about you, it's about them. Do you want to write that on your hand in case you forget? No? You can look at my tattoo if you get scared. Let's do it. And then you go inside prepared for your parents to show their true colors. And your parents float downstairs. And they're just amazing all night. They're fun, cool, laid back. Your dad's in an open Hawaiian shirt. Just a one-man conga line, topping off drinks, saying all kinds of progressive shit you've never heard him say. You want another beer? We should golf sometime. What are your pronouns again? And you gotta get back in the car later muttering like a conspiracy theorist. Now we're there, and I know it happened, and it was all right. And no one can tell me what didn't happen, and I know where it is. While your boyfriend buckles up I don't know what you're talking about, babe. Your parents are awesome. And you're like, oh. No, they are not. I don't know who those lizard people were. But they are not the ones who broke me. And the next time you see your parents, they're all smug, Jason really seemed to like us. You're like, I know what you're doing. Oh, maybe your therapist wants to meet us next, get our side of the story. I cannot wait till you're in the ground. All right, well, we'd like to be cremated. I will scatter your ashes where God can't find them.
I don't know who those lizard people are. They're not the ones who broke me. No.
Such a great line. Okay, so devil's advocate, sometimes people are on their best behavior because they want to make a good impression for the person you care about. It is true. Sometimes parents and other people want to make you look insane.
Yeah, I mean, some people do create an us versus them dynamic.
Yes.
And you just need to be patient because true colors are always shown.
Yeah, and that's what I would say. Instead of going into the whole, no, you haven't seen how they raised me. I mean, you can explain that. But honestly, if you're worried about your significant other seeing their true colors, if that person's going to be around for a long time, they'll see it,
Yeah.
right? They're going to see it.
I know the truth now.
So I was having a conversation with a family member about, marriages and that person's spouse's perspective of other people's marriages. And I said to this family member, yeah, we're all dysfunctional to some extent.
Yeah.
Like, we all are, and that's what we're doing. Like, we're all working through it. But
We're all working through our dysfunction.
Yeah, we're all working through our dysfunction. We're all learning.
Yeah.
We're all growing. Our families of origin had different dysfunctions. Like, maybe some people get caught up in comparing the dysfunction or applying moral evaluations to the dysfunction, right?
And when you say my family wasn't like this, it's like, yeah, but your family had its own, and I don't mean yours,
Right,
but just
right.
anybody's like, you could say my family isn't like yours. My family doesn't do, my mom never did what your mom does. Like, yeah, well, your mom had her own stuff though. Right?
Yeah. And so often it's not a right or wrong thing, it's just a differences thing.
Yeah.
And what it comes down to is meeting the needs of the partnership, right?
Yeah.
Because you do leave that family of origin and you create your own family, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there is conflict that comes up by having drastically different in-laws and the way they want to be involved in your family or not be involved in your family. And the partnership together needs to decide what works for them.
Yeah.
And then communicate that to the other people involved.
And the fact is, we don't just inherit dysfunction from our families, we also inherit function.
Yeah,
right?
and strengths.
And strengths. And,
Yeah.
and you get to decide moving forward as a person or as a couple, what do we want to bring with us? This is what you were talking about.
Yeah,
What we want
yeah.
to bring with us from our families of origin, and what do we want to deliberately do differently?
Yeah.
And that is a beautiful, powerful thing. Now, have any of your parents acted the perfect part when you brought a partner over? Or conversely, did they show their true colors immediately, and did you get that sympathy she was talking about? Let us know your stories in the comments below.
And did you get to go to Target afterwards?
Yes. To learn more about how your family of origin shapes you today, we've got a video called What is Attachment Theory and How is it Affecting Your Relationships? That's going to show up right here and you can check it out. Until next time, friends, keep shining.
We need your light.